The first time I met her,
How's it
I
looking
was
up
half
there?
covered in dust and holding a hammer I
Almost
didn't
done,
really
just a
know
bit more
how
to
to
go.
use. The roof over my rented place had started leaking the week before. I could have called someone, sure, but I didn't have the money, and it felt like something I should learn to fix. It was late summer, dry heat, no wind, the kind of day where you can hear your own heartbeat if you stop long enough. Her voice cut through the stillness. "Hey. You're going to cook yourself up there." I turned, squinting down. She stood in her backyard, a few feet over the hedge, holding a mug. I'd seen her before, briefly. The woman next door. Always in loose shirts and quiet colors. Mid-40s, maybe. There was a calm in how she carried herself, not confidence, exactly, but something steadier. "I'm fine," I called back. She shaded her eyes. "You've been up there for 3 hours. I can see your shoulders turning pink." I laughed softly, mostly to hide how flustered I was that she'd been watching long enough to notice. "Part of the job description." She tilted her head, smiling. "Part of the job description is also hydration. Come down for water." It wasn't a question. Her kitchen smelled faintly like lemons and coffee. There were small things, a dish towel folded just so, a plant by the window trying its best to stay alive. She poured me a glass of water and leaned against the counter. "You renting next door?" "Yeah. Just moved in last month." She nodded, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. "I figured. The old man before you never tried to fix anything himself." Her tone had humor tucked inside it, dry and warm. It disarmed me. We talked, not much, just about the neighborhood, the weather, the usual filler words people use to test how much of themselves they can reveal. But something in the pauses made it feel different. Her silence wasn't empty, it was listening. "When I left," she said, "you'll give yourself a sunstroke before you fix that leak." "Maybe," I said. "But then I'd have an excuse to come back for more water." She didn't laugh right away. Just looked at me, the kind of look that makes time pause for half a beat too long. Then she smiled, soft and real. "We'll call it a break, then." Over the next week, it became routine. I'd climb up early, pretend to focus on shingles and nails, and wait for her voice calling out from below, "You've earned a break." Sometimes it was lemonade. Sometimes coffee. Once, she brought a plate of cut fruit and told me she'd had too much. I knew she hadn't. We never talked about anything important. But somehow, it felt like we were saying more than we should. At night, I'd check my phone, scroll through old texts I never sent. I wasn't lonely, exactly. Just, untethered. And her company, her quiet humor, felt like gravity. On the 7th day, I told her the roof was finally done. She smiled, said, "Good job," and handed me a mug, not water this time, but coffee, black. "Guess that means no more breaks," she said lightly. "Guess not," I replied. We stood there for a second longer than made sense. She looked away first. "Well. You know where I am if you need something else to fix." That night, as I sat by my window, my phone buzzed. "Unknown number, next time, you can help me with the porch light. Bring your hammer." I stared at the message longer than I should have. Then I typed back, and erased every word. The following Saturday, she asked if I knew how to replace a porch light. She said it half joking, but when I showed up with my small toolbox, she smiled like she'd expected me to come. The afternoon light filtered through the open door, dust floating in golden streaks. She stood nearby, arms folded, watching me balance on the small step stool. Her voice was casual, but her eyes kept tracing the edges of things, my hands, the old light fixture, the quiet between us. "I used to do all this stuff with my husband," she said. Or, well, I used to watch him do it. I glanced down. "He's not around anymore." She shook her head. "No. Not for a while now." There was no bitterness in her tone, just a calm acceptance that made it heavier somehow. I wanted to ask what happened, but her silence said it wasn't a question she wanted answered. I tightened the new bulb. The light flickered on, warm and steady. She looked at it like it meant more than it should. "Thank you," she said softly. "Anytime," I replied. I meant it more than I should have. Later, she made tea. Chamomile for her, plain green for me. We sat on her back steps, facing the fading sun. "You said you just moved here," she began. "You like it so far?" "Yeah," I said. "Quiet. I think I needed that." She nodded slowly. "Quiet's good until it starts echoing." I looked at her. "What do you mean?" She smiled faintly. "You'll know when you're older." That line hung between us, "when you're older." It reminded me. Reminded both of us, probably. There were small things I noticed now, how she always tucked her hair behind her ear when she was thinking, how her fingers hesitated before passing me a cup, how she caught herself smiling and then hid it. One evening, I saw her sitting on her porch after dark, reading under a dim bulb. I almost walked over. Almost. But something in me hesitated, a quiet voice that said I shouldn't cross whatever this was. Still, I waved. She looked up, smiled, and held her book slightly higher, as if to say, "I'm fine here, but I see you." The next day, I found a small plate on my doorstep, a few slices of banana bread, still warm. A note beside it said, "For your hard work." Or for the roof gods. Whichever eats first. I laughed. But when I bit into the bread, I realized something. The note wasn't really about gratitude. It was about continuity. A quiet way of saying, "I was thinking of you." That evening, as I returned the empty plate, our hands brushed. Just briefly. Just enough to make both of us look away too quickly. "Careful," she murmured, smiling without looking up. "You'll make me start finding more things that need fixing." Her voice was steady, but her hands trembled slightly when she took the plate. And I didn't know whether I wanted her to stop or keep going. The porch light had been working fine for 2 weeks. Still, she called one evening, saying it flickered again. I knew it hadn't. I'd checked from my window the night before. But I went anyway. When she opened the door, she looked surprised, like she hadn't expected me to actually come. Her hair was damp, a towel hanging over her shoulder. She'd just showered. The smell of soap drifted in the air, warm and distracting. "Oh," she said, catching herself. "You didn't have to rush." "I wasn't busy," I lied. She handed me a screwdriver. "It's probably just loose." I might have knocked it cleaning. The bulb didn't need tightening. Still, I pretended to work on it, aware of her quiet presence behind me. Her voice came softly, careful, like she was talking to herself. "My son's coming back next weekend." I froze for a second, masking it with a laugh. "Didn't know you had a son." "He's your age," she said. 21. Maybe 22 now. I forget sometimes. She smiled, but there was an ache under it. "He doesn't visit much." I turned slightly, the screwdriver loose in my hand. "He will. Maybe." Her voice dimmed. "He's at that age where everything feels urgent, except family." Something in the way she said it made me want to close the distance between us, to tell her I understood that kind of loneliness, the kind that isn't dramatic, just constant. But before I could say anything, there was a sharp knock at the door. It was her friend, a woman from down the street. She stepped in without waiting, holding a pie dish. "I thought you'd like some company." Her eyes flicked from the tools in my hand to the towel still on her shoulder. Then to me. She smiled politely, but it lingered a bit too long. "Oh," she said lightly, "you've got help tonight." "Just fixing a light," the woman beside me said quickly. "He's, next door." Her friend nodded slowly, but her smile was the kind that knew more than it said. Right. Handy neighbor. The air felt heavier after that. When the friend left, the silence didn't settle back the same way. I started to pack up, but she stopped me. You don't have to go right away, she said. Her voice was softer than usual, uncertain. She set down 2 mugs of tea on the counter, one for her, one for me. I sat. We didn't talk much. Just the sound of the spoon against porcelain, the hum of the old fridge, her bare feet shifting on the tile. When she looked at me, it wasn't flirtation. It was recognition, that fragile, dangerous moment when 2 people realize they've drifted closer than they meant to. She reached out, brushing a bit of dust from my sleeve. Her fingers hesitated there, just long enough for breath to catch, eyes to meet. I could have leaned forward. She could have stepped back. Neither of us did. Then the porch light blinked, bright and sudden, like a warning. She pulled her hand away first. Guess it's working now, she murmured. I smiled faintly. Yeah. Guess it is. But neither of us moved. The evening air had started to cool. Late September, the kind where daylight fades before you're ready for it to. She was walking her dog when I saw her again. Or maybe pretending to, the leash hung loose, the dog more interested in the bushes than the path. I caught up beside her without planning to. He behaves better than I do, I said, nodding toward the dog. She smiled, small and distracted. You both need leashes. We walked for a while in near silence, our shoes scuffing against the cracked pavement. She looked tired, not in the physical sense, but in that quiet, inward way people look when they've been thinking too much. After a while, she said, "My son came by yesterday." I glanced at her. Yeah. She nodded. He asked who keeps fixing things for me. What did you say? That it's just the neighbor boy. The word boy caught somewhere in me, light but sharp. I laughed once, low. Boy, huh? She looked down. Well, you are. I pay my bills, I said softly. That's got to count for something. Her steps slowed. It does. Then quieter, too much, maybe. We stopped near the bench by the park's edge. The streetlights hadn't turned on yet, and the world felt suspended in that blue hour where everything is both seen and unseen. She sat first, folding her hands in her lap. He looked at me like he knew, she said. Like he could tell something was different. Was he right? She turned toward me. Her eyes were unreadable, but not cold. Does it matter? It does to me. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she laughed, a breath more than a sound. You don't even know what you want. Maybe I do, I said. I just don't know what I'm allowed to want. That stopped her. The dog tugged on the leash, restless. Neither of us moved. She exhaled slowly. You shouldn't say things like that. I didn't mean to, you did. She looked straight at me now. And I wish you hadn't. But she didn't sound angry. Just, scared. We sat there until the sky darkened completely. Somewhere, a streetlight flickered to life. I shouldn't have kept calling you over, she said finally. I think I just liked the company. It's been a long time since someone noticed the small things. Like if I change the porch flowers, or if I'm tired. I noticed, I said. Every time. Her jaw trembled. She turned away, pretending to fix her sleeve. Don't, she whispered. Don't make this harder than it already is. The air between us tightened, one breath too close, one heartbeat too loud. I reached out without thinking, fingers brushing hers on the bench. She didn't pull away, not immediately. Just stared at our hands like they belonged to strangers. Then she stood abruptly, the leash tangling for a second. Good night, she said. Her voice was steady again. I watched her walk away under the dim light, every step deliberate, controlled. When she reached her gate, she hesitated, turned slightly, and said without looking back, "You should fix that roof again. It's going to rain soon." And then she was gone. I didn't see her for nearly a week. Her porch light stayed off. The curtains drawn. Even the small plant she always watered looked wilted. At first, I thought maybe she'd gone somewhere, visiting her son, maybe. But her car was still parked in the same spot, the same faint layer of dust on the hood. By the 5th day, I started to worry. I almost knocked. Twice. But each time, I stopped, hand raised, then falling back to my side. Because what would I even say? "Are you okay? I miss you." I shouldn't miss you, but I do. On the 6th day, I saw her in the driveway. She was dressed up, not overly, but enough to make my chest tighten. A dress I hadn't seen before. Hair tied loosely. She was waiting beside her car, checking her watch. A man pulled up. Not her son. Older, mid-40s, maybe a little more. The kind of man who carried his confidence easily. He got out, smiled, and touched her shoulder like it was something he'd done before. They hugged. I told myself not to look, but my eyes stayed fixed. She laughed at something he said, head tilted back in that soft way she did when she wasn't guarding herself. Then they got in the car and drove off. That night, I couldn't stay still. I made coffee at midnight. Read the same line in a book 7 times. The roof, still solid, no leaks, stared down at me through the window like a cruel joke. I went outside for air, sat on the steps between our houses. Her porch was dark again, silent. Maybe I'd made it all up. Maybe those moments, those silences that felt like more than silence, were just kindness. Maybe she was just lonely, and I'd mistaken it for something else. Or maybe she was trying not to mistake it, too. She came back late. I saw her headlights sweep across the hedge. She sat in her car for a long time before going inside. The next morning, her voice carried across the yard, light, casual, as if nothing had changed. "Morning," she called out. I forced a smile. "Morning." She asked if I'd seen her package delivery, and I answered too quickly, too polite. It all felt staged, 2 people pretending they hadn't crossed a line that no one else could see. Before I went back in, she said quietly, "You've been quiet lately." "Just busy," I said. She nodded once, a polite lie matching mine. "Good. That's good." Her tone was light, but her eyes flickered, the briefest flash of something raw before she looked away. That evening, I opened my phone. Typed a message I didn't send. I wasn't busy. I was trying not to bother you. I don't know what that man means to you, but it shouldn't hurt this much. It does. Then I deleted it. The message bubble blinked out. Outside, her porch light turned on again, steady, unblinking, like it had never gone out at all. And I sat there in the dark, waiting for a break that didn't come. It rained that morning, steady and soft. The kind of rain that blurs the edges of things. I noticed her porch light flickering again. Or maybe I imagined it. Either way, I grabbed my jacket and walked over. She opened the door before I could knock. "I thought you'd come," she said simply. Her hair was slightly damp, a cardigan draped over her shoulders. Behind her, the house smelled faintly of coffee and something baking. "I saw the light," I said. "It's fine," she replied. "It just flickers sometimes." We stood there for a moment, neither stepping in nor away. Rain tapped softly against the eaves. "Come in," she said finally. The kettle was already on. We sat at the kitchen table, the same place I'd had tea with her months ago, when this all felt harmless. I waited for her to speak first. She didn't. Instead, she slid a mug toward me. "You've been avoiding me," she said, eyes on the steam. I smiled faintly. You've been busy. With what? I didn't answer. She sighed, leaning back in her chair. That was my ex-husband, the other night. He was in town for work. We had dinner. It wasn't, she stopped herself. It wasn't what you think. I stared into my cup. I didn't think anything. Liar. Her tone wasn't cruel, just honest. The silence stretched. The clock ticked. Somewhere, a floorboard creaked as the house settled. I told him the porch light worked fine, she said after a while. But I couldn't sleep that night, knowing it didn't. I looked up. So you called me? She nodded. You're easy to call. That stung, not because it was unkind, but because it was true. I don't know what this is, I said quietly. But it feels like I keep showing up to fix things that were never broken. Her eyes softened. They were broken. Just not the kind you can fix with a screwdriver. For a moment, neither of us breathed. I worry about what people will say, she admitted. About you, about me. I worry that I've been selfish, that I let something start just because I was lonely. I'm lonely too, I said. But that's not the only reason I come. She smiled sadly. I know. That's what makes it worse. I swallowed hard. Then tell me to stop. She looked at me, really looked, like she was memorizing the space between us. If I tell you to stop, will you? I didn't answer. She reached across the table, fingers brushing mine. This time, she didn't pull back. I don't know where this goes, she said softly. But I don't want to pretend it's nothing. Her hand trembled slightly. I turned mine, letting our fingers fit together, not tight, just enough. Outside, the rain eased to a whisper. We sat there, holding nothing more than a small truth, fragile, overdue, and somehow enough. When she finally spoke again, it wasn't a confession or a promise. Just a quiet, human word. Okay. And that was all either of us needed to hear. It's been 6 months since the rain that morning. The roof hasn't leaked since, though I still check after every storm. Not because I expect trouble, but because some habits stay. Her porch light still flickers sometimes. I stopped pretending to fix it. Now we just let it blink, like a small, shared secret between houses. Life didn't change all at once. It never does. There were weeks where we barely saw each other. I worked longer hours, she started volunteering at the library downtown. We'd wave from our driveways, exchange a few words about the weather, the mail, the quiet. But the distance never felt cold. Just comfortable. Like two people learning how to live beside something that mattered, without needing to hold it too tightly. Some evenings, I'd find her sitting on the same park bench as before, the dog at her feet, a thermos beside her. I'd join her. Sometimes we'd talk. Sometimes not. She still drank chamomile tea. I switched to black coffee. She'd tease me, "You're too young to be this bitter already," and I'd smile, because she'd said it before, months ago, when everything was still uncertain. Now, it just sounded like home. One night, she told me she'd been thinking of moving, closer to the coast, she said. Near the water. I nodded. You should. She looked at me then. Would you visit? I smiled. Only if the roof leaks. She laughed, that same quiet, unguarded laugh that used to undo me. Only now, it didn't ache. It just felt right. We never had a moment of declaration. No promises. No confessions whispered under moonlight. Just a gradual unfolding, the kind that happens when two people keep showing up, even after the wanting softens. She still calls me sometimes. Not for repairs anymore. Just to say, "It's 8:47, you're late for coffee." And I'll walk over, tools forgotten, heart steady. She'll hand me a mug, black for me, tea for her. The same table. The same quiet. The same warmth that never needed a name. This morning, the rain started early. Light drizzle, tapping against the windows. I saw her on the porch, wrapped in her cardigan, watching the sky. When I stepped outside, she looked over, smiled, and lifted her cup toward me. "Break time?" I asked. She nodded. "Always." I crossed the small stretch between our houses, feeling the familiar pull, not of longing, but of peace. When I sat beside her, she leaned her shoulder lightly against mine. No words. Just that small, shared weight that says everything is as it should be. The roof still holds. The light still flickers. And sometimes, when the rain slows just enough, I swear I can hear her whisper, half teasing, half remembering, "Don't stay up there too long." And I never do. Did this story stay with you? What kind of quiet, real love stories do you want to hear next? Tell me below. Your kind of peace might just be the next story I write.